Fireside Chat with Kiilu and David.
All right. So welcome to Fireside Chat with Kiilu and David with our special guest, Dan Gray, who is a founding partner of Cooper Ginsberg and Gray. I think you've been practicing for what, over 25 years. Is that right, Dan?
Been a long time.
And you're out in Northern Virginia, correct?
I am, just outside of DC.
Okay, just out of, all right. So where'd you grow up?
So I never got very far from Northern Virginia. I grew up here. I was born in Arlington. I lived there for 10 years, and then my parents moved to Reston. Then went to UVA for undergrad and GMU for law school. Never crossed the river, never went anywhere, just stayed in Virginia.
When you look back, do you first of all, I want to say something, by the way. We did not coordinate our shirts and our outfits, right? We seem to be in the same color palette. Just want to say that.
Right, right.
But number two is not. I'm not suggesting anything. I'm just interested when you look back, because like for me, I grew up in South Florida and I went to University of Florida for undergrad and for law school, and I almost moved away. I actually became barred in Illinois and came this close to moving to Chicago, but did not. And so I think about it from my own perspective. When looking back, would you have changed it? Would you have gone away? What is your opinion?
Would I have changed it? When I was an undergraduate, I minored in French, and everybody that I knew was going to France to sort of learn the language and everything. I regret that I didn't do that, but I don't regret that I stayed in Virginia. I love it here, and it's sort of, my father was born here. It just feels right. Why didn't you leave Florida?
Well, that's a two-part thing. So number one, I think when I was growing up, my dream, I grew up in a Michigan household, like University of Michigan. My mom went to Michigan, my sister went to Michigan. And so my dream was to go to University of Michigan. And I got in and committed and then decommitted and went to University of Florida.
Stop right there. You committed and then you backed out of it?
I did.
That's wild. How did you find the guts to do that?
I used the cold and some other excuses. I didn't have the perception and the self-awareness to know what it really was looking back. And I knew it. So I knew it by the time I was in law school what happened. That I was very introverted back then, didn't have self-confidence. And I think I was really scared to be that far away.
Wow.
I knew friends and I knew people going to the University of Florida, and it was close to home. And so I think I was just really scared to be that far away, to go to that school. And, that was my decision.
Yeah, I think both you guys are lying. I just think your ankle monitor wouldn't let you leave your respective.
It's so true. It was a condition of probation.
I didn't have a good attorney like Kiilu to get my restraining order lifted, so I had to stay within the state.
Both had some legal troubles, which allowed you hey, well, we could just go here.
That's right,
David. Yeah. I could never do that. I could never commit and then say no. I've had a change of heart. That is so not what I'm capable of, but I really applaud your ability to do it. I really
I wasn't sure where you were going. You thought I was a quitter.
No. I think that's really brave. Yeah, if I said I was in, I would do it whether I want to or not. I think it's impressive that you put the brakes on it.
I decommitted from Penn.
Did you really?
Yep.
Were you supposed to play baseball there?
No, I was so it was football, and then they only had club hockey. And so then I was going to Penn. I was all in on Penn. I said, yes, this is where I'm going. Last second, my dad wanted me to go to Brown, and he put up this. It wasn't even I think my recruiting trip was in May or something. I was everybody else was calling and doing whatever. I was this is where I'm going. My dad says, I want you to go to Brown. So I was like, whatever. So he put together a recruiting trip. Like he called and like they've been calling me, and he's like, okay, he'll come. So they put together a special weekend for me, and I brought my application on Friday, and I was accepted on Sunday, and so I was like, yeah, maybe yeah. And they actually they were going to allow me to play hockey because they actually had hockey, so it was, yeah, I'll do that. And then I think wasn't until after my freshman year when I had played football and hockey, I was in the weight room, and one of the guys that I played football with also played baseball. He came over and said, the coach wants to, talk to you. And so I guess I went and talked to the coach, and he was like, do you remember me? And I was like, no. And he's like, yeah, I came to recruit you, and you came in, you sat down and said, you got no chance in hell of me going to Brown, and you walked out. He's like, but now you're here. So what do you think? And so I was
Wild.
like, okay, So then that's when I switched over from hockey to playing football and baseball.
I am such a company man. I could never back out. Could never back out.
Yeah, it just didn't, it didn't feel right. It was just, UPenn is in the middle of the city, and like you got your dorms, but your dorms each has a gate where it's like it's not really even a campus. So it just felt weird. And so as much as I wanted to go there, and I had probably one of my best recruiting trips I'd ever had. It was so much fun. It just, I'm glad looking back. Hell, I even got into Wharton. It was like they had this whole thing set up for me, and it just,
Wow.
So David, I'm with you.
Do you regret it?
I regret going to Brown. I don't regret not going to UPenn.
Got it.
Why do you regret going to Brown?
Hey, look, going to Brown for me, it was one of those things where it changed people's initial perception of me. You look at me and you see whatever you want to see, and then all of a sudden you found out I went to Brown, then that changes that. However, it just, it wasn't the, you got a bunch of kids, who think that they're better than each other, and, you're here and you get in, and, everyone's trying to look at you like, did you get in because you're an athlete? And I'm like, well, actually, I think my GPA was like 3.87 or something. So I was like, so I think I belong here. But then you just had a bunch of, it was, yeah. If I look back, I would have much rather taken some of the, I really would have loved to gone to Syracuse, taken the scholarship, gone to Syracuse, had fun, done that. I would have loved to, taken up with UVA and just said, yeah, I'll go to UVA. That would be awesome.
We have a couple Syracuse lawyers in our office. They went there for undergrad. They're nuts. I think you wound up in the right place.
A couple of my buddies went to Syracuse, and I used to go to Syracuse, during, I don't know, it was like, I think it was my senior year. I went there for just a trip, and then I went there after I graduated, and I went there after I graduated again, just hanging out, and it was awesome. Now, I will honestly say that I am so glad I did not go to ASU, because I probably have like 65 kids. I'd still be an undergraduate, it'd be
Five that you know about, right?
Nuts. That would have been awesome.
Dan, how far outside of DC are you?
Oh, 15 minutes. I live in Annandale, Virginia, which is like just sort of southwest of the city. It's very close by, just outside the Beltway.
When I was in college, I did a summer where I lived in Arlington and worked in the Cannon building in DC, and it was incredible. I'm a political nut, or at least I was back then. So my wife and I are taking the kids in the next year to DC. I'm really excited about it.
It's so funny to me that it is a tourist destination, because I've always been so close to it that it's like, you go downtown, you go out to dinner, our office Christmas party is in DC. And so I always see all the tourists, and I really take for granted that we live in this area and it is a destination.
I get people who ask me, they go, "Oh, you live in South Florida, you go to the beach every day." And I go, "No, you know what? I've got a job and I've got like, family, we don't just go to the beach every day."
Yep.
But Dan, it's also got to be, growing up, so many, of your parents' friends or family members would come see you. And that's the one thing you had to do is either your summers or whatever. So you're always going to, if I see the Washington Monument one more time or have to go look at it one more time, it's like it's pretty to drive by, but oh my God, it's just a pencil. Leave me alone.
It's true. So true.
But I will say, like, I can tell you, I've probably been to the Air and Space Museum more times than I can count, and I will go back there every single time because it is so awesome.
It's the best.
Yeah.
There's no question. It's hands down the best museum. Always has been, always will be.
And I love the Smithsonian.
They have like a blackbird in there, right? Just a full on. Don't they have like we're talking about the what's it called, this, not the stealth, but like the blackbird. It's awesome.
Yeah. Now they've got one. Now they've got a sort of satellite museum out by Dulles Airport called Uvar Hazy, and they've got a space shuttle. It's unreal.
It's like where all the planes go to die or something. But the Air and Space Museum is completely different, which is like you see, like, what is that, Night at the Museum? You see that and you're like, oh, that's cool. And you can go to Smithsonian and that's nice and everything else. But the Air and Space Museum, that just holds a special place in my heart that I could live there. And that's the one place that I could probably go to every day and not get sick of it.
No question. No question.
So let me ask you this, Dan. So if you could go back in time and give advice to your younger self, what would you say?
Oh, that's a good one. If I could give advice to my younger self. You mean about lawyering or just in general?
In general, whatever. It could be lawyering, could be, hey, don't be afraid to escape the DMV, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, I think I would probably say that, and this is what I tell my kids, that, you really should not be living your life for others. You should be living your life for yourself. And, the way I grew up, I sort of always did the thing I was expected to do and what was expected of me to make others proud. And when looking back on it in terms of like raising my kids, I think I would have said, I'm proud of you less and focused more on, what makes you happy. And because I think at the end of the day, you can't live your life for other people. So I probably would have stressed that to myself. Like, don't do things just because you think it's the right thing to do. Do it because it makes you happy. A
good answer. Now, where'd you go to high school?
I went to South Lakes High School, class of '89. Go Seahawks. Pardon me.
South Lakes what's his name?
Grant Hill. Yes, Grant Hill.
Didn't Grant Hill go there?
Grant Hill went to South Lakes. I announced basketball when I was at South Lakes. I did the play-by-play in the stadium for the basketball games.
And you do realize that you have a Jay Billis cadence, by the way.
Oh, do I?
You have the look and the way you talk is you have a Jay Billis cadence to the way you talk. And that's a compliment, by the way.
I will take it. I will take it to the bank. Yeah, so Mr. Harris, my what was he, my 10th grade English teacher, he came to me and said, we need somebody to do the play-by-play for basketball. Will you do it? And I said, I don't know anything about basketball. He was like, don't worry about it. I'll teach you. So this is shooting 2. This is shooting 1-on-1. So he taught me all that, and I went in, and Grant Hill was a year younger than me. He was very good friends with my brother. He used to come for birthday parties at my house. It's like he was just a normal kid. But yeah, I went to high school with Grant Hill. He was class of '90. with my brother. I was class of '89.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
I remember.
Very cool.
I remember Grant Hill. Just that dude was just.
Oh, he was
awesome.
the shit. He was the shiz. And his father, Calvin, I mean, he was just, all the adults who were my parents' age worshiped Calvin Hill because he played football.
Yep.
And he'd show up at school in a big black Mercedes and drop off Grant. It was hilarious.
That's quite honestly, you can live in Virginia forever, and the only reason you know about South Lakes is because of Grant Hill.
That's exactly right.
Excuse me, and Daniel Gray. I just want you to know
that. That's right. Thank you, David.
Yeah. You're welcome.
Yeah, I do remember that.
Let me tell you something. You put it on a map. A year before Grant did, you put it on a map. He just rode your coattails. That's all.
I do remember picking up the Gazette, and they were talking about the announcer at South Lakes. So yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure. Right. Yeah.
What I heard was that Duke had no interest in Grant Hill, and then what caught their attention was this commentator, and you made him look really good on film, and so they took a chance, right? They would have never noticed him without you.
Listen, I don't like to brag. I really don't. And I'm not going to steal, thunder from anybody else, but the facts are the facts. True.
All right. So you said in general, do what makes you happy. Would you do that? Would that be the same advice that you give to younger attorneys, or would you give them different advice?
Oh yeah, that's interesting. So the best advice I ever heard for like really young attorneys, I brought my nephew to my office because he was considering law school, and brought him to meet every lawyer in the office and our office manager and all the rest of it. And one of the lawyers said, my advice to you is to go to law school where you think you want to practice law. So if you think you want to practice law in DC, go to law school in DC, because while you're in law school, you'll get jobs that will lead to opportunities. So I thought that was really excellent advice. If you want to end up working in Atlanta, go to law school in Atlanta. If you want to end up working in Chicago, go to law school there. California, same thing. So for law students, that's what I would say. For young lawyers, I guess the best advice I got was from a guy named Tom Edmonds, who was the executive director of the Virginia State Bar when I was the president of the Young Lawyers Conference, and he was retiring. And I said, Tom, what would you tell me in terms of advice? Like I'm looking for advice. And he said, well, I would tell you, always say yes if it's possible when somebody asks you to do something, because you never know where it will lead. And I have followed that advice my whole career. And I think that's really probably the best advice I got in terms of career advancement.
What was the best advice, Kiilu, you got as a young attorney that you remember? And I appreciate, Dan, what you said.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, as a young, because he gave two different answers. So I'll
go. So I'm not asking. Yes, he gave great. Number one, what would be his advice that he would give to young attorneys? But then, without being asked, which I thought was really interesting, he also spoke about the best advice he received as a young attorney. And so I was asking you, what was the best advice you received as a young attorney?
Well, I'll say this. So
you both are very distinguished and have had great careers and continue to have great careers and are well known. And I'm just, curious about that.
So I'll tell you what my dad told me going into law school. He looked at it and said, law school is for your first job. But when you go to law school to make connections, because that's what it's going to be. So I kind of took that into me in general. So I am looking at it and saying, your first job, who stays at your first job? Da, da, da. And I swear right now, I don't care if I went to, interview someplace. I don't think they're going to ask me what my grades were in law school, right? So that for law school is for your first job. But I can tell you the connections that I made in law school, that has served me well. So I've taken that advice onto my future self in terms of I am always going to make sure that I'm not going to say personable, but I'm going to say I try to connect with everyone that I have a conversation with. I try to at least extend that thing so we can create a friendship. That doesn't mean every time that friendship blossoms, but I try to look at it and say, hey, this is who I am, and it's weird because I feel like I can have a conversation with all different types of people. So I've tried to take that where I just continue to try to make, friendships and connections with everyone that I meet.
What about you, David? What's the good advice that you got?
It's a tie. When I was it's a tie only because like when I was I was getting done with law school and studying for the bar, my father told me that your reputation and your reputation and your professionalism, it takes a long time to build up, but can be lost in a second. And once you lose it, it's almost impossible to get it back. And that I think stuck with me. That was tied with, there was like a legend. I was a young attorney. I probably was maybe in my second year. And there was a legend in the community and had done everything and every accomplishment and was very successful. And I got to bend his ear and I asked him, I said, how do I become successful and make the money that you're making and really do what you're doing? And he said, you know how you do it? Don't worry about the money right now. He says, spend the beginning of your years becoming a master of the law, becoming as good of a lawyer as you can be, and your reputation. And he says, if you do those things, the money and success will follow. If you put being a great attorney, being honest and ethical and doing the right things for the family first, if you do those things, and then the success will follow. And he was absolutely right. I really have lived in my career that way.
How long have you been out, David?
20 years.
20 years. Kiilu, how long have you been practicing?
24.
24. Okay, so I've been at it since 96. Are you finding it more difficult as you get older?
More difficult how?
Lack of patience, lack of passion for what you're doing. I'm 53, and I think, from a monetary perspective, to have the kind of retirement I want, I probably am looking at another 15 years. Can you do it?
Really depends on how many zeros are in your 401k, right?
That's exactly right. No, I mean, not retirement, but like, can you continue this doing what you're doing for another 15 years?
It's funny because most people find this odd, but I really don't like people. I am not a people person.
That's a lie.
I'm not kidding. I could sit in my man cave or sit in front of the TV, sit playing video games, sit in my backyard by myself forever. And it's not as though I would need that, interaction with anybody. So, it's one of those things where I could do this for a very long time, but what I don't like is stupid people. And I find myself running into more and more people that just don't get it. They don't want to get it. They don't want to try to get it. And it's like, hey, look, I understand we can have disagreeing opinions. However, we should have been doing this long enough that we should be able to see the writing on the wall, that we can kind of get to this middle ground And so many people just want to fight. And I tell you right now, I usually tell people, I'm not the guy. Like, you know, when you say like, hey, I'm not the guy, I'm not the one, because when you want to pick that fight, I grew up, you know, throwing it down. So I'll continue to throw it down.
But it
But
sounds
but it's
like
a great
other
question.
lawyers, but it
Yeah.
sounds like other lawyers are what's grinding you down,
Yes,
not the clients.
correct.
And then the question that I keep asking, and I'm having this thought process, and I'm interested to hear it from you, Dan,
Mm-hmm.
is I wrestle with the following. It's like the chicken, it's like which came first, the chicken or the egg? What I mean by that is this: is Kiilu's comment a reflection of other people and society? Or is Kiilu's comment a reflection of he doesn't have the patience that he had 5 or 10 years ago? Like, I believe it's very difficult to practice law right now. I believe it's very difficult to practice law because of this. This is the greatest and worst invention in the last 100 years. That led to never being able to unplug. Social media and Amazon and all of that led, and Netflix led to the instant gratification generation. Every single client and every single attorney has this expectation that of no one unplugs, an instant response and instant action. And so I struggle with, are we practicing in a really, really difficult time right now? Are people different since COVID? I think they are. I think my attorneys are different. I think the clients are different. I think cases are more difficult to settle. So I have like this. And then I have this other part of me that wonders, well, how much of what I'm feeling is 20 years of this, and I'm not as patient as I used to be. Or is it just a mixture, right? Is the the chicken and egg. So Dan, I stole your thunder, but now I'd love to hear what you have to say.
For me personally, it's not the technology. I used to get back from lunch when I was, 5-10 years in. I used to come back from lunch and there was a stack of pink slips of clients who had called me and I had to call back. I hated that. God bless email. God bless email. I can see what they want. I can formulate a response. It's in writing. Certain things you have to have phone calls for, and sort of you need to know when to call them back, and you need to know when an email is appropriate. But I don't think it's the technology. I think it was COVID. It's not other counsel for me. It's the clients, and I am out of patience. It seems to me that they are just fighting to fight. They're fighting to win.
Yes.
I still litigate, and maybe it's a self-selective group of people that are finding me. But it used to be that I could say, look, you need to be the bigger person. You need to not get into the sandbox with them. You need to sort of be better than your spouse is being. And that is not getting through anymore. And it makes it very, very difficult. I have been in court more over the past 2 years than I have ever been at any point in my career. And I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I get back to my house between 7 and 8 at night. I just can't keep doing this. I work Saturday, I work Sunday. It's constant. It is constant.
So part of that though, Dan, is it's kind of like we are, first I can look at it and say, I've done a really good job of my client management where, I have that standard spiel. Hey, people pay me a lot of money. And if you're going to pay me a lot of money, you probably want to listen to me. But we're also a victim of our own success, where most of our clients are coming to us because we're so good. And because we're so good and we have that reputation, then we have to uphold that reputation and make those arguments for them. Whereas before we could massage it, but then everyone's like, you're the best. We heard you're the best, and that's why we're coming to you. And, as much as I cringe when people say, because I heard you're a shark, because I heard you're a pit bull, And I'm like, hey, I could be nice too sometimes, it's still, that's why people are coming to us. And it's kind of like we're a victim or creature or whatever it is of our own success. Now, I only have one more hard-hitting question, and then we get to the easy questions. You've kind of said all those things. Now, my next question for you would be, you've kind of given your life advice. Almost sounds like something that not only would you give to an undergraduate, but you give to a young associate, and then give to yourself, all those things. But my next question for you is, what advice would you offer to a young fellow or a newer fellow?
Easy question. You get out of this organization what you put into it, and you are going to get so much more out of it if you post for your chapter meetings, if you come to the national meeting, if you take the time to form the personal relationships. When I think I was 40, when I'm 53 now, I was 40 when I was admitted, and I brought my kids, I brought my wife, I got to know other families. It was by far the best organization I've ever been a part of, because I was open to the personal relationships and the friendships that joined, that sort of flowed from it. So I would say, take the time to actually go to the meetings, take the time to go to the mid-year, the national meeting. It just makes it so much more, richer. It's the best thing I ever did.
Now, here's my first, softball question. Who's your hero?
Oh, that's a good one. My heroes are the people who were important but stood in the background. People like Clark Clifford, who was a very influential lawyer in DC, advised Kennedy, advised Johnson, but never was out for personal recognition. Those are the people that I model myself after. Bob Mueller is another one. That guy took on a really important job. He wasn't in it for himself. He just did his responsibility, did his duty, and wasn't in it for personal glory. Those are the people that I really admire.
Oh, and obviously this is Fireside Chat, so we've got to look at it and say, go around. Hirschberg, what are you drinking?
Drinking a little Macallan, a little scotch.
Okay.
Rock.
All right. Dan, what are you drinking?
So I drink a Maker's Mark Old Fashioned. I had one when you called me, and because I was late, I didn't make another one, but Maker's Mark is my drink.
Okay.
What about you, Kiilu? What you having?
I am drinking what we call a Arizona ranch water. So it's essentially the ranch water. So a ranch water is Topo Chico, lime juice, and tequila. So what I do with the Arizona ranch water is I actually take the ranch water seltzers, and then I add tequila, and I add my lime juice. So I call it an Arizona ranch water because it's not the typical ranch water. Oh, so it's good. I like it. It's refreshing. It's nice. And, we're out there today, just, we get golf balls. We live on a golf course, so we get so many golf balls. And we probably had just a fraction of the golf balls. We pull them out because you look around and every container around our house has golf balls. So my wife was like, we're going to put them all together. Not to mention, we already have 2 big trash bins of them. So we pull them out, put them in the front yard. And I just pulled out ones that I knew that K2 would want to play with. And I pulled out ones that D3 would want to play with. So I got them each big buckets of balls. And I was like, good. I never have to buy them golf balls.
I was going to say, when's the last time you bought golf balls?
Golf balls.
But you're like, nah, I need to have the best for myself.
Yeah, because I'm not hitting the crap that comes in my yard.
That's right.
No, it's here's the thing. The funny thing is that I wish I played Pro V1s. If I played Pro V1s, I would never ever have to buy a golf ball. I have a big ass putting green in my backyard, and I only use Pro V1s. So because I use the ones that come from the yard, and so I've got like one of those big containers of Pro V1s. I've got grass bunkers that I use that are sand bunkers that are Pro V1s, but I don't use Pro V1s on a golf course.
What's your favorite ball on the golf course?
Bridgestone.
Bridgestone. Which particular kind of Bridgestone?
I really like the E12 contact.
E12 contact. Huh? All right.
Now, do you back up to a golf course, or do you actually have a putting green as part of your property? That's what I want to know.
Well, first, so I live at the end of a par 4. So my driveway goes into the green. So the cul-de-sac is the green. My backyard is a putting green that is, I think it's like 88 by 53. So I've got 2 grass bunkers. My entire backyard is turf, which I can also hit off of and hit onto the putting green.
Who maintains that? Like, do you have a service that comes in and like grooms that? Like, who does it?
No, it's all turf. It's a turf.
Oh, I get it.
It's a turf green. It's a turf backyard. My batting cage, which is I think 66 and a half feet long, that's turf as well. So the entire backyard is just turf in the sport court. So there's nothing really, except we have some rocks where we got to pull some weeds every once in a while, but everything else is just all turf.
Unreal.
Yeah, I'll go up there. I was out there, we have, I think 8 different holes, and it's tiered, it's undulated, it's got little hills and everything else. So we've made we basically made a front 9 and a back 9. So we'll putt one way and then we'll come back the other, and it's a par. It's crazy.
David, do you have a putting green at your home?
No, I don't.
I do not.
Yeah,
I do not either. I
don't have a pool table in my house.
But you know what's interesting? My neighbor put like a little tiny like kids put putting green in for his kids, but I mean, no, we do not. So.
Mine you can chip across the, the way we did it, where the turf itself is turf that you can actually hit balls off of. So it's not that turf when you hit it, it kind of sways with it. So here, a funny story. So I've got the batting cage, and at the end of the batting cage, I've got, we got the net, but then I set up another smaller net so I can hit balls into it. Now I've got one of those expensive hitting mats. It's like $600 that I got when I didn't have everything else. So I was hitting off of that, but it hits you up. And so I'm hitting the top of the net. So I was like, hey, I'm just going to try hitting off the turf that I have. I'm hitting off the turf, and I'm like, oh my God, this is perfect. So I'm hitting off it. I'm just flushing. And then I flush one, boom, right through the net. And so I'm just waiting. I'm waiting, but I don't hear anything. And I'm woo, because there's a little, and then I found that because they're smaller nets, but I guess one of them had kind of broken. So I went through that one, and the other ones behind it are for baseballs. And so, but a golf ball can easily fit through it. And so I was just like, and I'm like, all right, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. I'm going to have to get like something else that I can put behind it. But yeah, it's if this is like if I was a kid, this is the backyard I would have wanted to have. And everyone always says that always has this backyard because, I grew up and I went back home not too long ago, and a guy had a sport court, and he's like, yeah, my kids never use it. He's like, it's the biggest waste of time. But the great thing is that my kids will have like basketball tournaments here. So when both kids are home, they have tournaments, and you just bring food, and, they have barbecues, and they're playing 3-on-3 over there. You will have putting contest, and, the greatest thing in the world is to wake up in the morning and hear the ding you know, somebody hitting into the net off the tee. It's the greatest sound I've ever heard in my life. And so I'm glad I did it. You know, it was a pricey thing.
Who's the best golfer in your family?
What's that?
Who's the best golfer in your family?
Stop it. Come on.
Your boy.
You've
boy
never
sitting
let
right
your
there.
boys win at anything, not a basketball game, not a golf. You
No.
never.
No, but I will say this. I've taken K2 golfing and I still beat him. And it'll be a while before he beats me. But oh my God, that kid hits the ball so far. I'm talking, we were somewhere, we were playing in, I want to say Vegas. And it was like 350 to the green. And he was 20 yards off the green. I'll take him around here and he'll hit and I gave him like one of my old clubs. I ultimately bought him a new driver. But I gave him an old driver that I was like, oh, it's got no pop in it anymore. He would go out there and hit that thing and he'd hit it in places that I'd never been to. I was like, that's just I was like, you know, but you know what? Your short game sucks. So
Dan,
so
what's your
fun.
hobby? What do you like? What do you do?
So I play tennis. I play tennis 6-7 days a week. Every morning I have a standing match with somebody or other. So I spend a lot of time on that, and at least an hour a day. And I would say gardening, except I have not had time. I haven't been out in my yard since COVID, and I really miss it. It's just I'm working too hard. I do get the tennis in. I make sure that I get that before I go into work, but otherwise, no time for any other hobbies, unfortunately. What about you, David?
wait, hold on. Singing's not your hobby?
That's what I do in the shower, in the car. Just when I'm, just when I have those brief minutes, I'll put karaoke on the Spotify.
So if I put it on right now, are you going to give us a little melody?
No. No, not on demand like that. I need at least half an hour to get my courage up.
So before you ask Dan about his hobby, I will, for those people that don't know, what is your go-to karaoke song?
I would say my go-to karaoke song is Sinatra's "The Lady Is a Tramp." That's my go-to.
What about you, Kiilu?
Watching Dan sing "The Lady in maybe Journey's
Journey, Don't Stop Believing.
Don't Stop Believing. I think that
Always a good one. Always
Yeah,
always a crowd pleaser.
There's not a bar in the world that when you sing that, they ain't freaking hopping,
The two songs, if you're ever at a bar and it's gonna be karaoke or it's gonna be dueling pianos, it's Journey's Don't Stop Believing,
Billy Joel, Piano Man.
So now we're at 3, and Bon Jovi.
Living on a Prayer.
Yeah, Bon Jovi, Living on a Prayer. Right?
Can't go wrong. Can't go wrong.
Well,
wait a minute. We got off topic. David, what do you do for hobbies?
Like you, I struggle, with time, right? Because I work way too much, and I have like a fifth grader and a third grader, so I try to make what I can make. Although sometimes my wife gets asked, I thought you were a single mom," and it's like sad with me. But if I'm not spending time with the family, then I enjoy working out. I love to run. I love to work out, and then I'm a sports junkie. I'm an absolute sports junkie. So,
The two-part question then. I'll ask both of you guys. Dan, what is your favorite game or sport to watch and play? And you kind of sounds like it's tennis, but maybe it's different. And then Hirschberg, same question to you. Favorite game or sport to watch and play?
I love to go and watch the Nationals play at Nationals Park. but in terms of what I play, definitely tennis by a mile. Don't play, never golfed, never had the time, never had the money. Would love to take it up, but just haven't had the ability to. That's my two. David?
I bleed aqua and orange Dolphins football. So above all else, Dolphins football. But as a sport, basketball. I
Who did the
love.
Dolphins play today, Dan?
They played the Commanders and Mr. DC. I mean, 45-13. Excuse me. I'm sorry, but sorry. But beyond that, great season. Great season. I mean, I've never seen them win the Super Bowl. This would be. I mean, I love it. But beyond that, as a sport, basketball. I am a basketball junkie. I love basketball.
You realize, like, you guys that play basketball, as you get older, you don't throttle back on the intensity, and you F yourselves up so much. Like, the injuries are just unreal. Like, you got to find another hobby.
I stopped playing basketball years ago. I stopped when multiple people right around me within 2 months, Achilles, ACLs, so I stopped. So I'm talking about like watching.
I see.
Like playing.
I was gonna say you're only like 5'7", so it's not like you're playing that much. Were you playing? You were 35 playing in a 12 and under league or something?
Yeah, you know what? Well, I go out there and I'm balling against them. I dominate. I dominate. Once
kick those kindergartners' ass.
That's right. I can back down an 11-year-old. I'm just letting you know that I dominate. So, but as far as playing, recreationally, I enjoy tennis. I'm sure I'm not as good as you, but I love tennis. I really, really do. And both my boys took it up and love it, and it's great to watch them. They have a passion for it. And then running, like if I could my body broke down. I used to run marathons and half marathons, but to go for a run is just it's almost like meditation for me.
Mm-hmm.
We started doing the pickleball thing because we got a pickleball court in the backyard. And so.
Of course you do. Of course you have a pickleball court in your backyard. Yeah. What else you got back there?
A pool, a gazebo.
Pool.
He probably has a full-length basketball court too.
No,
I want to know what Kiilu does. Like, what sports do you play for recreation?
Oh, none anymore.
Besides golf, what do you do?
None anymore. So, I used to. After school, here's the thing. It's kind of like you play sports in college. You get to that point, and when you're done with it, then all of a sudden you're so glad to be done that you're just, and then you got to think about it where, one of the big sports I played was hockey. It's not like that. You'd have that, so I played in the adult leagues for a little bit, and then that just wasn't the same. You play,
right.
I played in some men's league baseball, and you can only do that for a little bit. So then I started playing, softball and doing that kind of stuff. And I remember I was playing in a game where it was, co-ed, and I think there was a play outfield. I throw it in. This girl is coming around third. She's coming home, and she blows out her Achilles. She gets to home. And so she's just collapsed like just before home plate. And I'm in the outfield yelling, Tiger, Tiger, Tiger. And then
what is wrong with you?
No mercy. No mercy from Kiilu.
And then I realized this whole thing is just not for me.
I love it.
I cannot separate the really competitive Kiilu from the not so competitive Kiilu. So that's why I just threw everything into golf, because I can be as hard on me as I want to be, and no one's going to complain. I can kick myself when I'm down, and no one's going to call me an asshole or anything else like that, because I'm just kicking myself. And
it also gives him the opportunity to do his favorite pastime, talk trash.
There you go.
It's not as cool talking trash to yourself. It's not like,
Well, but when you play with others, you get to talk trash.
but I
I
don't.
have on this point, I have a question for David. When you are on the tennis court, do you like if you screw up a shot, do you yell at yourself, or are you able to shut your mouth?
So what's interesting is when I was younger playing tennis, I would, and then I learned. I remember how I learned and when I learned it. That tennis is is so mental. It is so mental, but it's not just mental for you, it's mental for the other side. And the moment that they see you getting frustrated, they get confident. They
Yeah.
so I learned to not give that away. And
I,
and when I see it, so it's funny when I play with my wife, I used to play with my wife and she would do that. Um I would see it would, but I would try to calm her down because it's a not a good tell.
it's a terrible, terrible habit, and I do it, and I
Ask you.
wish I had a magic thing that I could think of that would stop me from doing it, because I some days I'm better than others, but I verbalize on that court. If I hit a lousy shot, I'm like, come on, Dan, come on. You know what I mean? And it's so obnoxious.
So what I
Hold on,
did.
hold on. I think it's the way you look at it, though, because here's the thing: you can use it as motivation. And then Hirschberg, this is why I'm going to disagree with you, because when I'm talking to myself on the golf course, like, God bless America, Kiilu, you could have hit that better. You needed to do this. All I'm doing is what you should realize is that I'm getting locked in. If all of a
Mm,
sudden I stop and I don't care anymore and I'm just kind of like going at it, whatever, then all of a sudden that's when I could say, hey, you might have my number. But when I'm talking to myself, all I'm doing is getting myself ramped up and ready. And so, and so Dan, that's where I would look at it and say, you should look at that as a more as not a blessing, but look at it as more motivation and embrace that, because that's who you are. Don't change that. You're 53 years old. If that's who you are, embrace that, take it with you, and then feed off of that. Because what you're doing is you're being counterproductive if you're trying to, one, motivate yourself, but then two, getting on yourself and saying you shouldn't do that, you're undermining what you're trying to accomplish. And so if that's who you are, embrace it and then take it to the next level. Feed off of that.
mm,
As long as you can feed off of it. I agree with you, Kilo, as long as you can feed off of it, right?
mm.
My problem is too many times, and occasionally it worked, right? Where you fire yourself up. Too many times I found myself like it's almost like quicksand,
Yeah.
right?
You get
You
into a
know,
spiral.
or whatever analogy, but like I would find myself spiraling down. And what I ended up doing is I ended up inventing in tennis. I have a little thing, I shouldn't tell you, but I have a little thing that when I start to like go down that road where I'm getting, I reset myself. I have a certain place I go on the court. I have a certain mantra that I say to myself, and I kind of try to reset myself. That's what I do.
Smart,
I like that.
smart.
That's a good
But you
one.
know what? What's interesting, and I'm going to tie this to what we do for a profession. Um, I've had some associates and some people talk to me about, how cool I am in court and how calm. And I told them I'm like a duck. I'm like a duck. Yeah, I look like I'm calm, but where you see me, but I am that's
Paddling underneath.
yeah, and same thing, right? I try to stay calm and give the confidence and do all of that. But man, I got a lot going on.
But it takes a toll. It takes a toll on you, and it takes a toll being the receptacle for all of the negative energy from the clients, and that's what I'm finding to be so challenging now. I don't know, Kilo, you're sort of my era too. I don't know whether you're finding it more challenging or not. I think David's still got another 10 years to see that.
I kid. That's why I tell everybody, hey, bourbon.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's tough. What we
It
do
is.
is tough.
All right. So let me ask you this, Dan. If you were stranded on a desert island, what 3 things would you bring?
Oh God, here we go.
Oh, stranded on a desert island. What 3 things would I bring? Wow. Whoa, that's a hell of a question. You gave me no advance notice of this. Like, is battery life a thing? Like, could I bring music? Would that be something? Okay.
Okay.
So if I had music, I could stand it.
You'll bring you bring music. So you'll bring a CD?
I mean, I would love to bring my iPhone and AirPods with me, but
so you bring your iPhone. That's 2 now. So you bring your iPhone and AirPods. That's
just for the music, and then.
But you got 2 right now. I'm explaining to you. You're bringing an iPhone and AirPods.
Yeah.
That's your 2 things. You've got 1 more.
I'd bring my wife.
You bring your wife. Okay.
Yeah. Misery loves company.
I love the safe answer, but so you're bringing a phone that's going to have about 12-hour battery life.
Yeah.
Dan, he's very difficult, and we've done this before. You need to hear his answer. His answer is ridiculous.
You're going to bring some AirPods that also have 12-hour battery life. So after that, you brought 2 useless things.
That's why I asked you if battery life was an issue.
I just said.
I would bring a notebook and a pen, and then my wife. That's what I would bring. The
pen's going to run out of ink, and the notebook's going to run out of pages. But hey,
all right.
Kiilu, why don't you tell him what you're bringing? This is the best.
Nope, that's that. This is not my interview.
All right.
What does he say, Hirschberg?
Hey, Dan,
tell me. Yeah.
Dan, where have you not been that you would love to visit?
So I'm actually the child of an immigrant. My mother immigrated from Italy. She was a war baby. My brother has gone back to visit her hometown. I would love to go back and see that.
Have you been to Italy at all?
Nope. Nope.
That's number 1 on my list, by the way, Italy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so my wife and I were our anniversary, so we were married February 20th, 2011.
Okay.
So February 20th, 2020, we were at our anniversary dinner, and it was our 9th anniversary. And we were talking about what do we want to do for our 10th anniversary. And we were debating Italy and Greece. Because Italy's number 1, but I also know she really wants to go to Greece. Mm-hmm. So we were like, okay, let's in the next 30 days start researching. Can we do both? Can we do this? Like, can we take time off work? The kids. We really were going to really look into what we were going to do. What happened, 3 weeks after our anniversary, February 20th, 2020. COVID. And right. So
David,
10th anniversary, for example, we were locked up. I mean, so we never made it to Italy. We never made it to Greece or anything like that, but that's number 1.
How old are the kids?
Our kids now are one's 11 and one's about to be 9.
You'll get there.
We have time. Yeah, we're
absolutely
knock on wood. Although time is precious. You never know how much we have, but yes, we'll do it. Everything's meant to be.
All right.
So what?
So yeah, come on, Dave. Down, so I just got to ask a couple questions. Dan, if you could be any it's a 2-part question, so I'm going to ask you the first.
I love this. So good.
First one is, if you could be any superhero, what superhero would that be?
Uh, so I would say Superman, but the responsibility is overwhelming. So I think I'm going to go with the Flash.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then you could look at it and say, if you could have any superpower, what superpower would you pick?
I would love to read minds. I would love that.
Like Mel Gibson.
What do you mean?
Mel Gibson in that movie, like What Women Want or whatever. Remember
He
that?
could only read
Never-
women's minds.
Yeah,
he
Never,
read women's
never
minds.
saw it. Never saw it.
Never.
But
Oh,
never
That's a
saw
good
it.
one. It actually
But
was a good
that's what I would love. I would love that. What are other people thinking?
okay.
What about you? Superhero, superpower.
This is Hirschberg and Kiilu interview Dan, not
Well, I'm still curious.
Oh my God. You know how many times I've asked that question, and I don't think I've really ever even thought about it.
Oh.
I guess I would say, if I could be any superhero, who would it be? I used to probably would have said Superman, but now I'm going to say Black Adam, because that dude can do anything that Superman can do. And then if I had a superpower, what would it be? I would probably say, I love your answer, but as much as I love your answer, I'd probably just say be able to fly.
That's a good one. Definitely a close second. David. Superhero, superpower.
I used to always be a Superman guy, and I agree with you that it's almost like too much power, right?
With great power comes great responsibilities, people. Come on.
I don't want the responsibility.
And
Come
I
on.
think it's very interesting that you and I we've had so much responsibility in our job that if we're doing this, we, Captain America or Iron Man, probably.
Pick one. You can't, but
I'm gonna go. I'll be Iron Man because what's great is I also get the access to that wealth and that wealth not just for me, but I get to do a lot of great things for people around me, for charity. There's a lot. You get a lot by being Iron Man, by being Tony Stark. You can do a lot of really good stuff. And I think that's really cool.
and you wouldn't even outkick your coverage being Tony Stark.
Oh, that's true. Well, I outkicked my coverage with my wife, so So now, as far as a superpower, wow, reading minds was
That was a good one. That was
that's a really good one. I'm not sure that I'm not sure that I'm not sure that I could top that. That's
you would win every conversation. You would be ahead. Good God. Yep.
Right.
That was a really good one. I'll say that right now. That's probably the best answer that I've heard. And I've been doing this, I think, 2 years now. That's probably the best answer now, granted, your whole stranded on a desert island sucked, but you made up for it with you knocked it out of the park with reading minds.
I struck out on the whole desert island thing. I did it freely.
But now you can fly off of it.
That's right.
Only if I come pick him up.
Only if he comes pick me up.
Read his wife's mind.
That's right. There you go.
I don't want to know. I don't want to know.
That's probably good.
So then, last question. I usually end that as the last question, but I'm just going to ask you this: if you could go back in time and change one thing, what would you change? And it can't be your answer about the desert island.
So I'm going to tell you what I would change, and it's a running joke in my family, and I'll tell it to you this way. I was with my wife and her best friend, who she's known for 1,000 years, and we were at the beach, and we were walking, and and her friend Elisa said, Dan, do you have any regrets? Like, you know, and I said, no, I really don't. I said, although I do regret giving up my music. And she said, oh, I didn't know. What instrument did you play? And I said, trombone. and they both pissed themselves dry. They laughed so hard. So the answer is, my one regret is I would have kept up with the trombone, and my whole family knows it, and they give me nothing but shit from the, you know, constantly.
I have to admit that up until the end of that story, I was not sure if the one thing you were going to change was that giving up trombone, or telling your family that you're
Right.
was giving up trombone, like not keeping that for yourself.
I know. I should have never said a word. They never would have known. It was at the end of 8th grade. Nobody would have known. But I said it.
So all I got to ask is, maybe, you know, if I say, hey, Dan, what would you change? And you could say, regrets. I had a few. If you could just say that and then take us off into, you know.
Well, I have to ask him something. I know I'm breaking privilege or breaking rules. How many times have you seen Trombone Shorty? Do you know who he is?
I am dimly aware of who he is, but I've long since
my law partner Jeff Weissman has probably seen him. I would have to minimum 25 times. Like,
is that right?
You know, he's like a jazz legend. He's a legend. He tours all around. That's why I was asking. So
yep.
All right. Sorry. All right, Kiilu, take us away.
Take us in there, and this is where Mary will then kind of give us some more Sinatra. But if you could, like, I know that you haven't like done your voice and everything, but if you could just say, you know, give us a whole regrets. I've had a few. Just come on.
Regret, I've had a few, but then again, too few to mention. That's all I know of that song. That's not my song.
That was perfect. That's perfect.
Thank you so much. Hirschberg, Dan, this has been awesome. Always a pleasure. Thank you so much. And hey, everybody, I hope you guys enjoyed this Fireside Chat.
Enjoy it. Thank you. Happy holidays, everybody.
You guys have a safe Sunday, and happy holidays.
Thanks.
Take care.
All right.